Happy New Year to everybody that's been following along with the Python web scraping series. Hopefully you are learning a lot. In this video, we're not going to be learning specifically anything new. Rather, we're going to be taking all of the knowledge that we have learned and reapplying it to a different website. Specifically, we're going to be taking a look at Medium. Medium is a website for posting blogs and is full of information. So if you're a company and you're interested in some kind of information that may impact the market or other social or economical conditions, that information may be interesting to you. My name is Anton. Welcome to the Raw Coding YouTube channel. Let's go ahead and see what Medium is made out of. Now, I've not touched a scraping project for a while and I tend to delete stuff off of my computer. So what I'm going to do is first virtual env create my virtual environment. In venv, I'm gonna find in bin dash activate. I'm gonna need a dot over here, and then pip install dash e and dot. So it's not installe, it's not Italian or French, this is an English tool. And we're gonna be greeted with this error, and this is fine. Multiple top level packages discovered in flat layout, scraping, insomnia curls. The error is pretty lengthy, but all it generally boils down to is Python is saying, look, you have two folders over here. I don't know which exactly is part of your package. Package being is the setup.py file, which is representing our command line tools and our dependencies and the actual name of our package, right? This is a package. This is a project that we have over here. What are actual folders that are part of our project? Long story short, what we have to do is we have to take the scraping folder. So let me press enter to rename over here. We are going to look for py modules. Here we're going to supply an array and then specify scraping. Here we're saying that the scraping folder is the main part of our project. Insomnia curls, venv are just metadata folders, or they might include some documentation that is irrelevant. Now I'm going to go ahead and run pip install and install of my packages. And while that's installing, we can go ahead and start exploring Medium. You can pause the video here. If you haven't watched the video on how we were scraping graphics cards, go ahead and watch it. It's going to be very informative because we're going to be doing exactly the same thing as we did in that video. However, instead of relying on insomnia, what tends to happen in the programming world is you're going to be using some kind of tool. It's going to get a bunch of features that you don't want, it's going to break, and then you're going to be like, I want a new tool. So today I'm just going to show you a different tool, a different HTTP client that you can use, which is called Postman. So go ahead and Google for Postman. We're not looking for Neil Postman, we're looking for Postman, the HTTP client. Download the client for the appropriate platform. For me, it's going to be Mac and Apple chip. Here's what Postman looks like after I have downloaded. I'm going to go ahead and skip and go to the app without signing in. I will close down the overview and the collections. It doesn't look like I can collapse them. You can go ahead and create some, but okay. So if you click and drag, you can collapse those. We don't really care about that. The warning, let's close that. Postman is a little bit more enterprisey. So if you're going to get a software engineering job, you're more likely to encounter Postman than you are Insomnia. However, most of the times, if you're going into a job, you will just be able to use whatever tools you feel comfortable with. But as you can see here, you can have workspaces and stuff like that. Companies will have their workspaces with pre-built scripts and stuff like that, although we don't care about any of that. What we want to do is click on this plus button, and this should look maybe semi-familiar as what we've seen in Insomnia. We essentially want to go ahead and replicate an HTTP request in here. Let's come back to the browser. We're going to close the download of Postman, and we're going to start focusing on Medium. Now, hopefully you know how to reach your development tools. If you don't, go ahead into the drop-down menu over here. We're going to go into more tools and developer tools, right? You can also right-click and inspect, and you're going to be reaching your developer tools. And then you want to find the network tab. Network tab, if you're a web scraper, again, this is just a reminder, this is your bread and butter. This is how you find out how things work. Now here we want to scroll down and we're gonna get a bunch of new blog posts or trending blog posts, right? Whatever they are. And if you are some kind of company or you're the government and you want to see what kind of information is flowing there around the internet, let's say if somebody's spreading some kind of dangerous information, or some kind of valuable information. Let's say somebody is leaking the next Nvidia card and it's bad. Perhaps you want to go ahead and sell your Nvidia stock, right? So this is how, if you're working in data collection and you're getting data, this is how you can use it to basically leverage and make financial decisions, right? But you can also scour through news manually. So anyway, as we were scrolling through the Medium posts, we're gonna see some HTTP requests being made here. If this network tab is full of stuff for you and you don't understand why, this is because you have the all filter selected. And I specifically have only the fetch and XHR, the asynchronous JavaScript requests that the website is making in the background. If I have all of them, it's going to be loading all kinds of stuff. If I load more stories, you can see it's going to load all the pictures, and it's going to be really hard to navigate this window over here. So what you want to tend to do is go to the top, refresh, you're going to get a bunch of stuff, and then cut. If we then scroll down, we're going to get a bunch of stories. Perhaps the very first load, we have actually managed to cut it off. So again, let's go to the top, let's refresh, and let's filter down to fetch/XHR. Now we're going to see a bunch of calls and the data is already loaded. So we can speculate which one of these it is. However, another thing that we can do is, again, just scroll all the way to the bottom where there is the load more stories. We're going to clear everything and load more stories. This is going to give us 4 calls. The first one is the performance one. Performance, there are going to be bogus logging calls that we will probably not care about. So the main one that we care about is this GraphQL one. It's making a post request to this endpoint. Payload is what it's posting, and if we view source, this is what it's going to look like. So maybe pretty intimidating, maybe we don't really care about it. If we look in the preview, this is the preview of the data. This is how much data there is from here that we can scrape. This is probably one of the most interesting things here, is the pagination, where you're gonna make a request and this is an infinitely scrollable list. You can keep getting and getting and getting more blog posts, etc., and seeping through them. Let's go ahead, take this GraphQL request. We're gonna press right click, copy, and then copy as curl. We're gonna come back to Postman and I'm just going to paste this request in here. I don't know if there is an option for this in Postman, but it's not as easy as it is in Insomnia, where we just paste the curl request and it goes ahead and loads this automatically into whatever setup we have over here. So instead, what we want to do is press Ctrl Z to get rid of all of this, and I'm gonna pop over this code snippet tab from here on the right, and we're just gonna fill it out by ourselves. So you can either bring it over back and forth. So if we take a look at the headers, here we can see the URL. We'll copy it, come back here, we'll put it over here, and then we can see that it's a post request. Come back over here, change this to post. And I can see whatever code snippet I have over here has already messed up. So let's just go ahead and abandon it, and we're going to be copying stuff back and forth. With the headers, we can see that there are some cookies. We don't know if they're affecting this call just yet. We don't need to speculate. There are then some kind of medium front-end app path and route headers that might be affecting or might not be affecting the request. So we're just taking note at this point. We can see there is some customized stuff over here. We may need to attach it to requests, or we may be able to discard it. Anyway, the main thing that is happening over here is with post, generally there is going to be some data that is going to be posted. The data that is posted goes along with the payload. If we go into headers, into the request headers, we will take a look at the content type and we will see that it's posting application/JSON. So this is what we can post as well, as soon as we make sure that whatever we have in the payload, and when we press view source, we will see that it is actually JSON over here. We're gonna scroll to the bottom and make sure that we press show more so we can see the end of the JSON payload over here. And because it starts in these square and curly braces, I'm quite confident that this is JSON. We're gonna come back over here, we're gonna go to the body, and you will notice that there is also a GraphQL option over here. We're not going to be messing with this just yet. We're going to go to raw, and then from the drop down over here, we're going to select JSON, and we're just going to be posting JSON. There is an option to beautify. If we press on this, it's going to, well, let's say beautify this query for us. The response down here doesn't matter too much. Let's go ahead, send this, and see if we get anything back in return. And it looks like we do. So we have a bunch of stuff over here for latest posts. Let's see if we have anything else. So I will scroll down. There's a bunch of posts, and then there is paging information for getting the next pages. So looks like, yes, there are a bunch of cookies and stuff like that, but it seems like they don't matter. So let's go ahead, come back to our code. We're gonna go into scraping. We're gonna add another folder. This is going to be blog. We're gonna go into shop. We're gonna grab main, copy it, paste it over here. We're gonna collapse shop. And for now, I'm also going to collapse the terminal. The cookie, we don't care about the cookie. Let's go ahead, get rid of that. Here we were passing what kind of command we want and what kind of product do we want to add. We are going to remove, let's say, most of this. And mainly what I want to say is how many pages I want to paginate over and get all of those results. So let's say that the first argument is going to be pages. Nearly the same thing that is going to be happening over here. We're going to be posting to a URL. Our URL looks a lot more simpler. Let's say I'm gonna take all of this, remove it, put GraphQL over here, and because it is so small, I will actually just go ahead and place it over here. Let's remove this. Didn't mean to go over here. I wanted to fix the indentation over here. And then for the query, if we come back to Postman, and I'm gonna come back to the body that we've been posting, because JSON is so similar to Python dictionaries, we can actually take all of that. I'm gonna go over here and create another query and just paste in the object that we had over here. I'll remove this query, and here we're gonna see some pagination information. Now, this version of pagination is a little bit more on the complicated side. Generally, you will have like 2 parameters. Limit is how many things are you gonna get per page, per load, and then some kind of cursor, basically an indicator of, let's say, if you have a strip, how far down the strip of information have you gotten? How far deep are you into the information that you want to get? These indicators, they will vary. This is a variation of this indicator. So if we're loading something from the beginning, perhaps this is going to be empty. Before we try to find out what the beginning looks like and setting up pagination, let's just make sure that this one single individual call is going to work. We have the query. We are going to be posting it instead of data as JSON. We're going to make sure we're going to use only one equals. We're going to get a response. There's going to be JSON in it. Let's double check what data we're getting back. So over here, now here on the sidebars, you can collapse things to make things a little bit easier to read if you want to. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger and go all the way to the top. We're going to have an array, an object in the array, and then data. Do we have anything besides that object? We do not. So let's first come back over here, and we're going to make sure that from whatever JSON we have over here, we're going to grab the first element, which is then going to be the object with a bunch of information in the data property. So from here, we're going to select data, and the first object is really this object in the array, and then we will have topic. So right over here, we're going to have topic. And let's just make sure that besides data, we don't have anything else. We do not. Inside topic, what do we have? Nothing. And here we then have ID, and this topic is featured stories. So what stories are being featured on Medium currently? If we then collapse latest topics, this is the only thing that we have here, and then post previews. These are the posts that we can start getting some information out of, and it's sitting next to pagination information. So post previews is what we're after. It goes from topic, latest posts, and then post previews. So let's grab latest posts, coming back to the code, putting latest posts over here, and then supplying post previews on the end over here. And these are going to be posts. Now we already know how to iterate over a collection and append results to another collection this way. Let's go ahead and try use a different way. Our map product, this is just going to start mapping posts. So map post, if I grab post, put it over here, the object from the beginning, let's say that it is going to be empty. For all the posts that we have over here in the results, instead of doing this, we are going to do something else. We're going to use the map function. The map function, if we open it up, and by the way, I opened it up using F12. If we right click and we go to definition, this is going to send you to definition. Now, Don't worry about this. I myself find this pretty unreadable. All I care about are these two parameters that we're supplying because I struggle to remember with which parameter goes in which place. So wherever I see the iterator, that's the position of the collection. The other position is of the higher order function, which is just going to perform the mapping operation on each element in the collection. If we now take the post, supply it as the first parameter, and then the second parameter, we're going to take map post, put it over here. This is going to return an iterator, which we will then have to, by the end, convert to a list. And what we have written in this single line over here is effectively the same thing as this for loop. So we can go ahead and remove it. Again, to reiterate, the map post function is going to be applied to each element. This is what the map function is going to do. And then it's going to convert the result into a list. So this collection will be mapped to a new collection with all of the results. Now let's go ahead and grab some properties. So if we come back to the data, we're gonna have a post ID. So let's say ID is coming from post ID. We're then gonna have, let's say, title and description. So title and then disc for description. It is all gonna be coming from post. And in here, I know it's scrolling a little bit too much and that didn't help. We have title, the author of the post. If I scroll a little bit down, there's going to be preview content and subtitle. And I think that is what we're after. Okay, so let's say instead of description, subtitle. We're gonna go into post of post. We'll then grab title over here. And in here, I already forgot, so let's come back. It's going to be preview content and subtitle. So preview content and then subtitle. And there we have it. Going back to setup.py, let's go ahead and add another command line tool. So scrape blog. This is going to go into blog and defaults. I'm going to come back to the console, rerun the pip install-e in the current directory, and then we can scrape blog. Looks like I haven't supplied any parameters, so I just got an error. I'll just supply a bogus number, which is still going to give me an error. So type error, function object is not iterable. On this line over here, this basically tells me even though I have gone ahead and took a look at the definition of the map function, the iterator, whatever it is not meant to represent a collection. So let's put the function in the first parameter and the post in the second parameter. We're going to rerun the application, and here we're going to get output.json. If I format this file and drop down the terminal, we're going to get a bunch of results. Cool. So this is working. Let's go ahead and delete it because, you know, we already pretty much know how to do all of this stuff. The more interesting stuff is going to be this pagination. If we come back over here and let's just clear everything, go to the top and refresh, let's just say we will assume that whatever GraphQL call is being made here, if we take a look at the response, or actually the preview of the response, is this information what we're looking for? The shape of the data over here does not look like the shape of the data over here, especially data topic and named feature stories. So that is what we want to look for. Let's come back to the next GraphQL, then data, topic, and here we have featured stories. So this is pretty much what we're looking for. Let's take a look at the payload that was supplied here. So if we just take everything, same as we did before, just grab it, come back to the code, we'll just put it over here to against a variable a, and then scroll back. I know this is not formatted, so it might be a little bit hard to look at. And we can see that on the very first call, we still have this 2 parameter. So before we start doing anything else, let's just double check and make sure that there are no other calls that are doing these similar requests of the topic featured blogs or whatever, or featured posts, right? So everything looks pretty different. So I'm going to be sure that this is the very first request, featured stories. Another way that we can double check is we can take a look at the best New York resolution can make. We will open up topic, latest posts. Let's take a look at post previews, the very first one, and then we will scroll down. AI science fiction versus reality is not the very first thing, so let's just go into the response and double check that the best New Year resolution is somewhere in here, and if it's not, looks like the best New Year's resolution is not here, which means some of these posts are pre-rendered. Let's go ahead and close this. We'll again clear everything, we'll go to all and we'll reload Medium. If we take a look at medium.com and preview, we're gonna see that indeed some of the first posts are preloaded automatically, which means perhaps the pagination information may be in the response of the initial HTML data. Let's go ahead, expand everything. And what we can at least hope to find is if we go and look for feed options and Control F for feed options, nothing is going to be here. So let's go ahead and instead search for best new year resolution or whatnot, and there are free finds. So this is the first one. This here is already a link. This is how it's rendered in the browser. Let's go to the next one. This is still in the browser, and the next one. This looks like the initial data used to render these stories. So perhaps somewhere in here we will be able to find some information around that number that is being presented to us. So scrolling over here can be quite time consuming. What we're going to do is we're going to say, look, the very first call that is being made somewhere over here to featured stories, if we take a look at the payload and we view source of the query where we can again see the to parameter, if we grab it from here and we come back to the initial payload and look in here, we're going to be able to see the paging information. So the initial call that we should be making should be going to medium.com. Or perhaps even better, what if we just don't specify the to? What is going to happen? And this is always worth testing. Don't always take whatever setup the actual website has, go ahead and play with it. What if we take the to and we just go ahead and remove it? What is going to happen? Well, we still get posts and we actually start at the correct place of the best New Year's resolution you can make, okay? So if we don't supply a parameter, we're essentially starting at the beginning. So this is going to be a difference between somebody who has experience in web scraping and somebody who is new. If you're new, you're just using what you're given. If you're experienced, you're just trying to abuse what is being exposed to you and grab whatever you can, whenever you can. So let's go ahead and instead of using this number from the beginning, let's template it in. This is the only thing that we want to change from this whole malarkey over here. So let's change the query to be a function. We're going to define a function, create underscore query. This is going to be a function which is going to evaluate to this. So let's return this value from the function. We will indent this. The rest of this will need to be indented as well. This will need colons to define the body of the function. We'll take the feed paging options. We're going to create a variable, although we'll create it feed paging options. This is going to be a new object, same thing as we have over here. So just like that. However, the to parameter from the beginning, we will say that it is going to be none. So this function is going to have the to parameter, which is optional and by default set to 2. So if, and let's indent this back over here and this object back over here as well. From the beginning, we're going to remove to. If to is not none, and here I'm being explicit, you can say if to without the is not none. However, I think being explicit in this case is a little bit better. Feed options and then the key to, we're going to be setting it to 2. We'll then take feed paging options and we're going to set it to this object over here. Provide a little bit of space over here, so I think this is going to be a little bit more readable. And now we can use create the query function. We can also remove this variable a that we had over here. Let's grab create query. We'll put it over here. We're just going to call it. So this function is going to create the query, assign it to JSON, and then it's going to call it. Let's go ahead, open up the terminal, rerun the application. We're going to get output JSON and we get the expected result. Didn't want to jump to the end here. So the best New Year's resolution you can make, la da 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 da. Okay, perfect. Now let's go ahead and delete output.json. We're going to move it to trash. We're then going to drop down the terminal. And because we want pagination, we want this request being done multiple times. We're going to undo the work that we've done over here and we're going to put this in a loop. So for attempt in, we're going to use a range. So from 0 up to pages, this is how many times we want to loop. let's go ahead and indent everything, or we can indent only the logic, so outputting the results by the end, or we can stream writing the results to JSON. That could be a good idea, but we're going to do bulk because it's a little bit easier. So the result is going to be an array. By the end of each individual call, we're going to be iterating over each post in posts and then calling the map post function on the individual post. And then we're going to be appending this to results. So results, append, call the function, remove this malarkey over here. And there we have it. So you can see that the attempt, the variable, we're not really using it. You can specify it as X or whatever. It doesn't really matter that much. Now for the query, we do want to be grabbing this to cursor. If we come back over here, we're gonna go down to the results. So besides the latest posts, let's go ahead, collapse that, and actually was besides the post previous. Here we have paging information and then the next. Let's come back to the code. We're gonna grab all the stuff up to the latest posts. Let's grab all of this here. Let's say latest underscore posts equals this. No semicolons in Python. Let's put this over here. And then the to parameter, which is from the beginning going to be none. Let's go ahead, place it over here. After this is all done, if we go to the latest posts, and we're gonna go into paging info and then next, and then the to parameter. So latest posts, I already forgot, but I remembered next and then to. Which one was it? It was paging info. Let's place this over here. We will then reassign this to 2, and then we can grab 2 and pass it as a parameter to create query. If we now go over here and we run the application, and actually it might be worth putting a little print statement over here to make sure that you're looping the correct amount of times. So let's say we're going to be printing over here, and we'll say collected posts, and in the middle we're going to put, let's say that this is an interpolated string, length posts. So how many posts have we scraped? Let's open up the terminal, run the application. We'll see it's saying string object cannot be interpreted as an integer on line 33. That's a little bit incorrect. It is inside range 0 pages. So pages over here, you can't see it, but it's a string and it wants an integer parameter over here. So what we have to do is actually cast this parameter that we have here to an integer. Let's rerun the application, and there we can see scraping posts each individual time. If we then open the output, it looks to be quite massive. I'm going to format it. So you can see here we have collected a good amount of posts, and if we take the best new year and we search for this, we're going to see that there is only a single occurrence. That means we have only managed to collect unique data. And there we have it, another website that you can now go ahead and scrape. Blog websites generally tend to be full of various useful information. Whatever information you may need, you basically know how to go and get it now. This will be it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. If you are watching these videos, please leave a like and tell me in the comments that you are watching these. It really helps to know that I'm not just sending these videos out into the void. You can also leave a comment if you have any questions. If you would like the source code, please consider supporting me on my Patreon. Very, very big thank you to all my patrons that are currently supporting me. Your help is very much appreciated. All the best for 2023 and have a good weekend.